which was very common in New Mexico. Anybody who was anybody was a Mason. Tom Casad was a Mason basically everywhere. I tracked him through Masonic lodges literally all across the country. And again, that was not... and in the late 19th century, Masonry was almost a secular religion for many of these people. It seemed to be the case for him. And then, of course, this is Sarah. One of the things that Tom Casad was most innovative about was the production of alfalfa. He may not have been the very first person to introduce alfalfa into the Mesilla Valley, but he was certainly one of the earliest, and there's no question that he was the first to really do industrial scale alfalfa. And he also constructed a plant to extract the seed, and when he died and that seed factory fell into disuse, alfalfa went into decline here in the valley for a number of years because he was really the only one. That was an extremely successful. Alfalfa, of course, is still a big important crop in this area. He introduced Angola goats. This was all the rage. This was a total flop. Angola goats apparently don't like the climate in Las Cruces, although it's not hot here. I mean, I would say about alfalfa, it's quite interesting. The comment is made to whom Donald asked him, your dad does a lot of haying, did a lot of haying. He said, no, he never harvested any hay. I harvested all the hay. He certainly introduced it. He also introduced the Poland China pig, and this was quite fascinating. We don't do a lot of hog production here in New Mexico. We never really have. This was not particularly successful, but I discovered that the Poland China pig was actually developed in St. Clair County, Illinois at the very time that Tom Casad was living there. So if he wasn't involved, if the family back there was not involved in the development of it, they were certainly living there when that happened. And I would just say parenthetically that when he was living back there, the prairie, when they first moved there, the prairie sod had not been broken. And so the great agricultural revolution that was brought about by John Deere and the steel plow that would actually break the prairie sod, it happened while he was living there. So in terms of, living in the moment of the development of scientific agriculture in New Mexico, in the United States, he was really on top of it. And of course, I don't know, you guys went to Mesilla, you probably went to the Masonic Cemetery. Tomorrow you're going to the Masonic, okay. Now, I have these pictures by way of apology. There are so many children that I haven't pursued an awful lot of research on every one, but I don't want you to think that I'm unimpressed by the beautiful and talented Casad women. One of my theories for why the family has disappeared from here is because there were so many beautiful, talented Casad women and not so many handsome, talented Casad men. Otherwise, every business, the streets in the valley, everything would be Casad this and Casad that, you would imagine, but it didn't work out that way. And of course, we've already had a mention of Jesse. This photo was kind of interesting. When three of the kids, at least for a while, went to what is now called Pacific University in Stockton, but when the kids went, it was called University of the Pacific, and it was in San Diego, or San Jose, I mean. And this is what the school looked like then. This is where you get the connection with the Rhodes family. And some of the research that I've done was with this connection with Clarence Edgar Rhodes, of course, the brother of Eugene Menlo Rhodes. When I started doing this, one of the things, and this is the sort of the new research that I've been doing, is it occurred to me, and also doing the Bennett research, that one of the things that characterizes the Casad family sort of writ large and all the branches is this is a really binational, bicultural family. Right? I think it's one of the things that characterizes it, and as I've continued to do research, I find more and more references to that, and I'm going to introduce you to some people here that you're related to, and I bet there are not too many of you that even know you're related to them. You're related to them by marriage, but here we go, eventually here. Well, so El Oro, also called El Oro de Hidalgo, is a very important community for the Casad Rhodes family. This is a mining area, and Clarence Rhodes was a mining engineer, and so the family moved here. It's in the state of Mexico. Probably it's sort of roughly between Morelia and Michoacan in Mexico City, not on a direct line, but located there. It's highland mountain country. These are just a few images from when they would have been living there. Sorry, they're so washed out. This is a theater that's there. This is a very famous theater. This is the community. Anyway, it's a highland community, and this is where Hinman. Anybody related to Hinman? Okay, so have you visited El Oro?
No, but we knew Hinman very close.
Okay, so this is where he was born. You knew that, right?
We knew he was born in Mexico.
Okay, he was born in El Oro. Now, 100 years ago, when the previous iteration of the reunion happened, it was a little bit of a somber occasion. I mean, obviously, they wanted to commemorate the 100th year birth of the patriarch of the family, and that's really what we're talking about. That's why I love that picture of the sort of biblical Tom Casad as a patriarch of an enormous family. I understand they're representatives of 7 generations here. It's pretty incredible. They had a much smaller reunion, and gathered around the table was what members of the family that could be there, and 2 empty chairs. Tom Sr. and Tom Jr. Because the family had only recently learned that Tom Jr. had passed away at age 50, which was quite a surprise. This is my favorite picture of Tom Jr. as young. He was not robust. He had rheumatic fever. Apparently the ladies liked him quite a bit. I have a question about him that maybe somebody can, again, in a quieter moment, somebody can tell me what was the circumstance of his first marriage. I don't really know anything about the first marriage. He was kind of an interesting character. He was traveling around in Mexico with a dentist. He had no formal training in dentistry, but he apparently bought the business and was rumored to have been quite a skillful dentist. His second wife, which we'll talk a little bit more about, he did an inlay on what I take to be a front tooth. I asked my wife, who's an anthropologist, is there any tradition among the native peoples of Michoacan for doing gold or diamond inlays on the teeth, and she said no. But apparently he did an inlay. I've heard it described as being both a cross, which would also be a T for Tom. So at any rate, that's he apparently was a respected dentist, and he worked for Asarco as the company dentist, I guess. You can't read these records. On the internet, there are at least 25 fairly complete genealogies of this family. Some of them more accurate than others, which is kind of the story of the internet. I'm not sure if I found my way to yours. I'm sure it's very accurate, but I certainly want to look at it. But a number of the mistakes that are on there, I think, are directly attributable to me, because in the research that I did here at NMSU, I discovered that he married his second wife in Atoyac, Michoacan. Only he really didn't. That's what somebody remembered, because that's in fact where she was from, but that wasn't where they got married. And these are the people that I wanted to introduce you to, which I think many of you probably don't know. You're related to them by marriage. This is Tom Jr.'s Mexican relatives through his second wife, okay, Amelia Gutierrez, right? So this is her grandfather, Juan Jose Gutierrez and Bernarda Guerra. That's her grandparents. Then her mom and dad, Juan Rosell and Maria Mansui. Her mom and dad, those are both grandparents. The top two are both grandparents. The first one is paternal grandparents. The second is maternal grandparents. Then so this is the second wife's mom and dad, Lucio Gutierrez and Maria Rosell. And then here are the children that I've been able to find from that family. You can see this woman was having children for a long time, from 1872 all the way to 1893, not unlike Sally. So there's a Teresa Demetria, there's a Bernarda, then Amelia herself, Eliodora, and Raimundo. Those are the relatives that I've been able to find. I don't imagine there are any representatives of this family here, or am I incorrect? There are not? And so this is another question which I have, and I'm sure somebody can tell me. I know that Amelia was living in the valley after Tom Jr. died. There are some interesting stories about her and her personality and various different things, but I don't really know what happened, and I don't know whether any of her siblings came. And again, since this family, your family, is very binational and very bicultural, this is something that I found quite interesting, because probably in Mexico, or maybe some of these people live here now, there are a whole lot more people that are related, at least by marriage. This is for me as a historian, I thought, well, there's a whole other avenue of research to look at here. And this is just their marriage, and this is where I made a mistake, that they didn't really get married in her hometown. So where they married was Zitácuaro, which is also in Michoacan. Atoyac, where she was from, is a tiny little place, and the sort of administrative center where they actually married is Zitácuaro. So, okay, so